Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's talk about the diary. And I know what you're thinking, but we're going to go way beyond that little book with the lock and key. We're digging into its surprising power and just how complex it really is as a literary genre.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to completely redefine what a diary even is. Then, we'll take a quick trip through time to see how it's changed. After that, we'll get into its anatomy, what makes it tick. We'll look at the big themes it tackles and wrap things up by looking at its, let's say, complicated relationship with the truth.
So, first things first, we've got to challenge our most basic ideas about this. Before we can even get into its history or the big ideas inside, we all need to be on the same page about what a diary actually is. Because trust me, it is so much more than just a place to stash your secrets. So when I say diary, what's the first thing that pops in your head? For most people, right, it's that little book, maybe with a lock, full of secrets. But when you look at it as a literary form, whoa, its job is way more complex. It's not just a place where you record who you are. It's a place where a self is actually built. And here's the absolute key difference, the thing you really need to get. Think about an autobiography. It's looking back, right? It's taking a whole life and polishing it into this nice, neat, finished story. A diary, it's the complete opposite. It's capturing life as it's happening. It's immediate, it's unfiltered. It's the raw, messy, unedited footage of living, one day at a time.
Okay, so now that we've kind of reset our definition, let's jump in the time machine and see how this super personal way of writing has changed, and I mean dramatically changed, over the centuries.
And wow, what a journey it's been. It really started back in the medieval era, believe it or not, as a kind of spiritual tool, a way to do a private moral check-in with yourself. But then fast forward to the 17th century, and you've got the Enlightenment celebrating the individual, so the diary starts to cover everyday life, social stuff. Then in the 19th century, it becomes this amazing record of big social changes and a deep dive into psychology. And finally, in the 20th century, it takes on this incredibly powerful role as a form of testimony, a way to bear witness to huge historical traumas.
So, what exactly makes a diary a diary? What are the key ingredients? Let's break down the anatomy of it. You can think of these features as the diary's DNA. You've got the dated entries which nail the writing down to a specific moment in time. You've got that first-person I, which is what gives it that incredibly intimate feel. It's meant to be private, right? Written for an audience of one. And that episodic nature, it feels just like life, doesn't it? Not one big, clean story, but just a series of moments strung together.
And this quote just nails the diary style perfectly. The language is often informal, fragmented, maybe even a little disjointed. But that's not a flaw. That's actually where its power comes from. It's the closest we can ever get to seeing thought on the page as it's actually happening.
So what does this all mean? It means a diary is never ever just about what happened. It's all about how the writer felt about what happened, how they experienced it. The whole story is filtered through their emotions, their priorities, their mood at that exact moment. It's like a direct window into someone's inner world.
And inside this very unique structure, diarists end up exploring, pretty much the biggest parts of being human. Everything from the most private, personal thoughts to massive, public, historical events.
First and foremost, it's a space for self-reflection. I love this idea of the diary as a laboratory of the self. It's this safe, private space where someone like Virginia Woolf could just experiment. She could play with her writing voice, face her own doubts, explore her creative process, and do it all without worrying about what anyone else would think.
But it's not all deep thoughts. Diaries are incredible because they save the little things, the texture of everyday life. They're not just about the big, dramatic moments. They're about the small stuff, what the weather was like, a random conversation, the price of milk, all the details that usually get lost in the big official history books, but are, let's be honest, what life is actually made of. And this is where they get really powerful. They show us what it feels like to live through huge historical moments. Think about Samuel Pepys during the Great Plague in London. He didn't write about it like a historian with statistics. He wrote about the daily terror, the fear you could feel in the streets, watching the death count climb. A diary gives history a heartbeat. And sometimes, a diary can be more than just a record. It can be a lifeline, a vital form of testimony. When someone is facing something overwhelming, it becomes this safe place to put all their feelings, their fear, their anger, even their joy. You just have to think of Anne Frank. Her diary is one of the most powerful examples of how writing can bear witness to the unimaginable, and at the same time,
hold on so fiercely to hope and humanity.
All right, for our last section, let's get into the really tricky stuff. The diary's complicated relationship with the truth and what its legacy really is for both history and literature.
So here's the big question. Is a diary always telling the truth? It feels like it should be, right? It's so immediate and personal. We just assume it's the 100% honest truth. But it's more complicated than that. A diary represents a subjective truth. Its reality as one person saw it and felt it in one specific moment in time.
And this is what I find so fascinating. The diary basically lives this double life. On one hand, it's an incredible historical document. It gives us first-hand accounts, especially from people who are often ignored by the official record keepers, ordinary people, women, minorities. But on the other hand, it's also a literary text. It shows us how we actually use writing to figure out who we are, to construct an identity, and to make sense of the world around us.
So, in the end, what does the diary teach us? It reminds us that history isn't just about big battles and famous people. It's built from countless individual, ordinary days. Every single diary entry is its own little universe of thought and feeling and experience. And it kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What story does a single one of your days tell?